Hi, this is JR. I'm here with Kara.
Hello.
She's off camera, of course. This is the correct interpretation of "To the pure, all things are pure," Titus 1:15, which is a letter from Paul to Titus. So here's the correct interpretation: to those with correct perception, all perceptions are correct. Those with proper perception, all perceptions are proper. However, to those who are grieving, nothing is correct. Nothing is proper. In fact, their thinking and their perceiving is full of condemnation and blame. Those who are grieving will identify grievances wherever they look. Oh, there's one right there.
No,
there's one right there.
That's you. No.
They will say life should not be how it is. For the one with a raging spirit, they will identify outrages everywhere. They will say life should be how it is not. For the one with the spirit of vilification, they will identify villains everywhere. They will say those people should not be how they are. For the one who's ashamed, they will identify shames wherever they look. They will say those people should be how they are not. It is just such a shame. For those with a hateful spirit, also known as haters, they will identify things to hate everywhere. They may actually say, my life is ruining my life. But they will always create ways to call for your attention and your blessing. So, grieving. I added this part after I had typed the rest of this, the next few sentences, paragraphs. For some, grieving is an outrage or a shame to be attacked. Is grief really so terrifying, though? For the one who is afraid of their own grief, which may be very fitting for them in that moment, anyone else's grieving may be interpreted as a threat, as a shame, as an outrage. Other people's grieving can be contagious, very literally. Kind of like laughter can be contagious, and don't start. And so one who is afraid of grieving, like ashamed of it, may reflexively suppress the grieving of other people. Don't stop.
I'm knocking to grieve.
That's not allowed. Don't do that. For those afraid of, I'll make you have a reason to cry. Ever heard that one?
Right.
I was thinking, what is the one I'm trying to remember? I haven't heard it in so long. It's been at least 6 minutes since I've said that. No, that was a joke. Okay. So one who's afraid of grieving or ashamed of it may actively, reflexively suppress the grieving of others. Just totally predictable. So for those afraid of grieving will be personified as the great evil, the great Eve, the great devil, the great Satan. It must be destroyed, corrected, fixed, because it's wrong.
It is.
And that's the beginning of agonizing. For once we have grieving as our target to repress, the great threat, then there is that agonizing is the constant war against grieving, a constant vigilance against vulnerability, a constant exhaustion of one's own energy so as to avoid even a single moment of grief, at least any form of grief that is not rationalized or justified as acceptable by the one who is grieving. I lost my place here. Okay, right. So we find things to grieve about that are removed from like the actual historic grief. Like I might be grieving about, here's a good one. When I was like 9.
What happened?
Are you ready?
Yes.
The Gators lost to the Seminoles. The University of Florida football team, the Gators, they lost to the Florida State University Seminoles football team.
Horrible.
This actually happened more than once, by the way. But that particular year, I think it was 78, I don't know, whatever. I cried. It was very sad. It was just really, really sad. I mean, they almost won. The Seminoles probably came back at the last minute, or maybe the Gators almost came back at the last minute. It was tragic. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm talking about? It was really sad.
Oh.
So, my crying over that might have been related to something else. Now that I'm telling the story, I think immediately of a dog that I had died. It might have been a month prior, a day prior, I do not recall, but thinking back to my childhood, I think of the death of that dog. And then maybe shortly after that, the Gators lost to the Seminoles, and that is something that people are allowed to grieve about because it's so removed, so, external, it's safe. So it's a safe thing to grieve about, which is awesome that someone can have grief displaced and then actually have grieving about whatever external, relatively trivial thing, really, but they grieve about it. That means it's not trivial to them. Right?
Right.
Wrong?
No.
So, any form of grief that's not rationalized or justified as acceptable by someone who's terrified of grieving, traumatized about repressing grieving, or in shock, basically, about grief, well, they won't express that grief, and they will also potentially either remove themselves from other people expressing grief or attack other people expressing grief in some way, shame them, condemn them, make criticisms of, how can you be grieving about a sporting team losing to a sporting team? That's just so stupid. Or how can you be grieving about the loss of your dog or job or whatever. How can you be grieving? That's just ridiculous for people to grieve. They shouldn't do that.
It's wrong.
That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, that agonizing spirit is the beginning of the spirit of perfectionism or anti-negativity. Anti-negativity is the condemnation of all things condemned as negative or negativity.
Okay.
Which I think of as the apex of hypocrisy.
Yes.
The absolute pinnacle of hypocrisy, which is another word for apex.
Apex.
Or peak, or pinnacle.
Pinnacle Peak.
Or Pinnacle Peak, which is an actual place in Scottsdale. I used to live near there. So, in the moment of condemning negativity and being a hypocrite, that might be very fitting for someone in that particular moment.
Yes. No.
I'm not going to point any fingers, but... Alright, so why is condemning grief a perfect fit whenever it happens? Because if it wasn't a perfect fit, God wouldn't have produced that development. Again, to the pure, all developments, all perceptions are pure, they're proper, they're fitting, because God wouldn't have produced them otherwise. So, back to the original script. That was the aside. After I wrote the original blog thing, I added all that stuff about grieving because I realized, oh, this is about grieving. This is pretty cool. I didn't even know. So to the pure, all things are pure. To those with the spirit of hatred, there's always something to hate. For those with the spirit of rage, there's always an outrage. For those with the spirit of grief, there's always a grievance. And you know what? Now that I think about it, I'll tell you the real problem, the real reason that the Gators lost the Seminoles was the referee. The referee was prejudiced.
Oh, no.
It was racism. It was.
Oh, no.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
No.
Did you see that call that he made though?
You were 9. Anyway.
I was listening to it on the radio, and I know that he made a bad call. I mean, I could tell from just listening to it on the radio that it was a bad call. And I know what race that referee was too, because he wouldn't have made that call otherwise. It had to be that. So those with the spirit of innocence, they'll identify innocence everywhere. They may not actually say they know not what they do, but they'll create ways for other people to recognize that what they've been doing with their to create ways for people to recognize how they've been relating to their own perceptions, to recognize how they've been identifying themselves when they label their own conclusions as the truth. That's typically what it comes down to. My perceptions, my conclusions are the true ones.
They're
the right ones.
The right ones.
That's right. And that referee was wrong. Just because he was the referee, that doesn't matter. I mean, I know that's how the actual, NCAA is gonna go with his penalty call, or maybe he should have called a penalty. I forget which. Anyway, I'm gonna hold on to this for decades. This issue from 1979, because this was a big mistake. That referee, I'll tell you his name too. I remembered it was. Oh, jeez, I can't believe I forgot it.
Hello?
Anyway. Oh, hey. I was off in my own world. This couple decades ago, this thing happened. It was horrible. Anyway, for those with the spirit of purity, they will identify purity everywhere. They may not actually say, life is simply however life is, but they might say that. And their spirit of purity and grace and simplicity will be evident. When others are grieving and mourning, those with the spirit of holiness will bless their grieving and their mourning. And say, you know what? Everything's wrong. Stuff like that. Everything's wrong. It may be only a few that will say this. I challenge you to bring me even your spirit of divisiveness and contempt, if you can bear to approach me with it. Are you willing to be one with so much faith? Are you willing to be emptied out and filled anew with the Holy Spirit? Then look at the pictures. Look at the pictures. See, then there's a picture of, like, this is I think it's Pieta by Michelangelo, and then they actually put, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. You can hear me. I'll be right back. There's Pieta. The Pieta. You have to go to my blog to see the pictures.
Yes, I know the Pieta. It was art history. I know that.
She was art history.
I was.
Not anymore, though.
No.
Then there's, like, the 1611 publication of the Holy Bible, the authorized version, now called the King James Version. Lots of parallel translations of 1 Titus 15, but more pictures. That was a stained glass window. This is a bunch of coffins and grieving kin of the deceased, and I don't know what that's from, but I think it's some other country. That's very specific, not the U.S.
That's sad. Yeah. Okay.
And then down here, that's Jesus died, and he was totally innocent. If you had known him, you would have liked him, seriously. So he got killed, big mistake. He got killed, and then Mary is pictured here mourning over his loss because he was horrible. Tragic. And then over here, that's another squeezed picture of a bunch of people mourning over Jesus after he gets pulled down off of the cross. And then some people mourning. These women are mourning the death, March 17th, 2012, a few weeks ago. The Pope of the Coptic Orthodox Church in Egypt died, and those people were mourning his death. And there's another one, Jesus pulled down from the cross, and everybody's mourning because it's so sad, and they're grieving. And then there's a picture of some U.S. soldiers in 1950 mourning the loss of one of their fellow soldiers. And then there's a picture of some people shaming some other people because the other people did something wrong, something like that. And then that's it. That's all the pictures. There you go. Thank you very much. That's the correct interpretation of Titus 1:15. To the pure, all things are pure. And to those whose spirits are corrupt, nothing is proper. Everything is a grievance and outrage, or at least some things, especially that one referee. I would forgive him, but he was wrong. He hasn't sufficiently made up, like compensated for the grievance that I have against him. That's the basic thing.
Okay.
So, beware of referees, because they ruin the outcome of lots of sporting events that should be won by the team who really deserves to win. Okay. Bye. Say bye.
Bye.